How does my hair look? Welcome to another episode on the Unbalanced Pedestal podcast with your host, me. You know who I am because that's why you're here, Tina Marie. And I hope you guys are doing fabulous. You're watching or listening to this podcast. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe, like, and share this podcast episode because it's another touchy subject that a lot of people, male or female, does not like to address in their own world. Always in my microphone. You know what they say, the bigger the bag, the more books it holds. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can still get the same amount of books plus more if you download the app Audible right onto your phone. You'll get these books plus millions of titles that is available to you straight on your smartphone. So go ahead, click the link in the description box, sign up for a 2-month free trial, cancel anytime. But don't forget, once you become a member, you get 1 free credit every single month. So you can choose any title to any author, whoever you choose to get, and it's free because you're a valuable member. Now let's get back into the episode. I'm going to talk about you keep internalizing the fear that is perpetuated in your environment, receiving that negative energy in order for you to not move forward. And this is, I can say, I want to speak on for the past few weeks that I've been working with an individual, and it's a male, and he just has this fear of asking for money. Like, he doesn't like confrontations. He doesn't like the way it feels. It's something that's very uncomfortable. And he's a much older gentleman, but he is not comfortable with just saying, hey, this is what you owe me. This is what I need in order to continue on with life. Essentially, there are people that in our lives that, we let them borrow maybe $100, $500, whatever it is. And we just never gather up that courage to say, hey, can I have that money back? Because you might be in the bind yourself, right? At the time of that transaction, there may not have been any fine or contract, I should say, that says you borrow the money, you give it back to me by such and such date. You just said, fine, here's the money. So a lot of times this may happen with close friends, family members, and, business partners, whoever it is. And it's an unsettling feeling. I've been there before in the past where, you let people borrow money and it's like, how do you ask for money back? You're a nice person. But at the reality is that you are, rightfully so, you are owed that money. And this is one thing that I would say society has made us soft, or has not taught us, I should say, that's probably a better word, has not taught us to stand up and ask for what is rightfully ours, right? Society has not taught us, our environment has not taught us how to say, no, I am not comfortable with lending you X amount of dollars, or I'm not comfortable with lending you my favorite material possession or whatever it is, right? So going back to perpetuating and internalizing this fear, So my client, he is very successful, and he, again, is uncomfortable with this asking for what is owed and what is due to him. And this is for not just for him, but this can be for anyone that's on this earth, any gender, any race. The fear, the traumatic experiences that we had growing up. So why exactly is this fear built up every time this conversation is brought up about collecting funds? I'm still working on that root of the problem, but obviously this has to do with some traumatic experience growing up. Maybe money was, for most people, when people talk about money and finances as a child, because I know I talked about this on my previous episodes, where you don't talk about money or finances. You don't ask how much is made, what things cost. That was just like not a subject that you ever talked about, especially with your grandparents. Like, God forbid that happens. You know, it's not talked about how much debt is owed and how much is in the bank. None of that. Like, there is no conversation that's going on. Never is a conversation. And I'm so grateful that we're in the times for the last few years that this conversation, plus many, many others, are opened up, that the newer generation is like, we need to know, we need answers now. And I love that part. So I helped facilitated my client get his money, and he was so uncomfortable. Like, it was just like, if you picture like a cartoon with the sweat dripping from the forehead and all of these things. And I'm just like, hey, this is what it is. This is what you owe. You have a limited amount of time. And when it comes to helping people and like protecting even like my own, like, I am that shark. Like, I'll go from like this nice person to like, you know, go from night to day, like, so serious. And, you know, it was, I'll say, a very few days that was very, very, very tense on his end, but they were able to work it out, reconcile, and they had a conversation that's been going, a conversation that has been dragging out for months and months. And this conversation finally happened, and both parties agree on the terms, and my client is being paid what is owed to him. So it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. And it's all because of stepping into and facing those fears that we've held for so long, that what if I ask, what if I go ahead and take this direction, that something that I've never done before. And I have expressed that I'm not comfortable, but at the same time, I'm still scared. And I had this reaction, you know, to, oh my God, it happened. Like, what is going on? It's like, I talked about in previous podcasts, like, for those who are adrenaline junkies, this could be someone who, which I haven't done yet, do skydiving. This is something I have experienced. When you go ziplining and you jump off that ledge, you put that first foot forward, you know, to weigh you down, and you're like 1,000 feet in the air. That adrenaline, that first step is always the scariest. But once you take that first step, that leap of faith, it's like, okay, it's not that bad. And this is what I keep saying. We always perpetuate. And actually, there was actually a conversation that was going on, that was a part of, I believe it was yesterday, on social media. So it was this conversation that we tell ourselves all of these like lies, right? And this is something that I talk about in my how to mend your relationship with your daughter in that course in unit 3. It's we tell ourselves all of these lies that the what ifs. Like there was like one great example where you're with someone, anybody, no matter who it is, and you're hanging out with them. It may be late, it could be during the day, whenever it is. You say, hey, call me when you get home, or vice versa, right? And what happens when you or that other person does not call you after maybe an hour or two? You or that person may start to get worried. Small little things. Oh, maybe they're stuck in traffic, or maybe they can't find parking, or maybe they got stuck in the subway, or they probably stopped off at the store. And then you're like, okay, 2 to 3 hours roll by. Well, maybe this thing happened. Like, did it get into accidents? Like all of these things, and it starts building and building. And you're like, oh my God, something must have happened. They haven't called. Like, what should I do? And then you start texting and they may not answer. So now you're like building this momentum of this lies and not lies, but these thoughts that's going on. And you're like freaking out, right? And then you may get hold of the person, or they may get a hold of you. Oh yeah, I stopped off at so-and-so. I fell asleep after I took a shower. When I got home, I didn't, I totally forgot, like whatever it is. And then you find out that they're fine, And so these are like the things, the fears that we internalize in ourselves, that we tell ourselves, because we are the biggest person. We believe what we tell ourselves first. Like it starts internally. And I talked about we have up to 80,000 thoughts per day. And so if a lot of them are negative beliefs, they're lies, they're just not good thoughts, you're not in a good place right now in your life. And your mind is just like taking in so much negative energy, fear. It's going to keep building and building. And this is what I talked about. Also, your thoughts is like a lint, right? It in the dryer. It keeps collecting the lint, the catcher. It keeps collecting the lint. It finds more and more, and it builds and builds and builds and builds. And so the lint can signify the negative thoughts, or it can also be a beautiful thing and signify positive thoughts, right? So when you switch over to working on yourself, working on your mental, and I'm not talking about like mental health. Yes, mental health, but when I say mental, meaning you just say, I'm not going to believe certain things no more. I'm going to pull away from certain outlets. I'm going to move myself from this environment. I'm going to move myself away from this person for a little bit. That doesn't mean that I don't like them, I don't love them, I don't care for them, but I need my own mental space, right? And this is mental health, obviously. But you want to say, I need to start my mind fresh and clean, like a blank sheet of paper. Fresh, clean, no eraser marks, no pen marks, no coffee stains, like nothing on the sheet of paper, right? And so when we do the exercise on ourselves, we want to put positive thoughts into our mind so we can build that resistance, the resilience. And when that happens, right, you have that nice foundation. And this is something every day that you have to do, every moment in your life. And this is not to say that you're never going to get a negative thought, because I get negative thoughts and I'm like, No, go right back out. You get to realize it. You get to say, it's like someone coming into your house for the first time, or they come to your house, been to your house maybe multiple times, right? The rule in your house is no shoes. So you see someone, coming in, about to walk in onto your nice clean floors, your carpet, and you're like, oh, what? Shoes off. The same thing you do with negative thoughts. Like, you got to take your shoes off, or if you don't like it, you got to go. It's your house, right? Your brain is your house. This is your domain. This is where you want to keep it, as a sanctuary, right? And going back to, just having that space of creating that positive energy, those positive thoughts, that lint that I was referring to earlier, that you want to keep having that constantly. And again, not to say that you're not going to have those negative thoughts that pop in, because they will, but you'll be able to recognize them much faster, much quicker. And you'll be able to notice who is also feeding you purposely those negative seeds. Once you get to that point where you're like, oh, okay, every time around this person or that person or this group of people, they're always saying something, right? And it's not, and then when you get to that point where you, I won't say reintroduce yourself back to society, but when you let people back in after you fill that page up that you have with positive thought thinking and all these other things that you've been, in your personal development journey that you've been working on yourself, you go back in, you reintroduce yourself. My name is Hove, and you like, okay, I can handle this. Then you respond differently instead of taking that negative energy, those negative words, and you're internalizing it. And I reference, one of my favorite books, and this is like, actually, I referenced this book again, two different conversations over the weekend. It may show up backwards, but this book, The Four Agreements, is like, I love this book by Don Miguel Ruiz. I'll put the description or the link in the description so you can take a look at it. But it is a fabulous book. It's a very short read. Like, you can read this in a day. It's very easy. And one of the things, besides talk about your environment, your societal beliefs, but it says not take things personally. So when you get a lot of those negative thoughts that it's coming towards you from someone else, it's not because of you. It's because they are feeling some type of way. And you may be there in their presence, and they may see something about you that is something that they always have craved, they have always envied. And they may say something that they feel so hurt that they want to say it to you, but it's really about what they feel inside. They're projecting their hurt and pain and fears onto you. So when you have your positive thoughts and energies, your lymph balls are all positive thoughts in your mind, in that house, in that space, then you're like, oh, okay, that person definitely has unhealed traumatic experiences that they may not be aware of. They could be still in therapy. I know a lot of people who are in therapy, and it's just a lot of hurt and pain that they just still are going through. And then when you're in that environment with them, after you are, I'll say completely healed, because we are always continuously healing ourselves. But when you, in your healing process, your own healing journey, you recognize it much easier. You're like, oh, okay, that's how they feel. It's fine. And you just walk away. Or, you may, I would say, question or challenge them, because that's more confrontation, confrontation. But if it's something that's intriguing, you're like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. Like, or what do you mean by that? You'll ask them, like, what do you mean exactly by that comment you made? Can you repeat that? And so when you ask them, can they repeat what they said, especially if it's in front of a group of people, they get to realize that, oh, maybe what I said wasn't, that nice, or it was insensitive. And then they may dial back, right? But this book also talks about not to take things personally. And again, it's like what we have sung as, well, not sung, but we said as children, for those who are here in the United States, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And back then I didn't know what that meaning was. I mean, I knew, but it never really held weight. So there's a lot of things that were said to us as children, or things we sung, especially Ring Around the Rosie. We know it was about the plague. Okay, I'm digressing. I had to digress a little bit, to keep y'all, on edge. But we knew about this as a child because we said these words would never hurt me, but we never knew what it meant. So as an adult, we have to take that same principle. You can say anything to me, but those words would never hurt me, because what you're saying is that you're hurting. So you want me to hurt too. That's all it is. That's basically all it is. That's what people do. And so when you recognize that, you get to stop internalizing those fears and those projections of that negative energy towards you. You get to stop doing that. And so the client is good, happy, celebration, yada, 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 right? And this is like a great, story that I'm sharing with you, because no matter how old you get, it's still going to be the same exact thing. It's always going to show up differently. You may, for those who watch TV, the news outlets and all those things, it's always going to be some there's always going to be some perpetuation of fear mongering. There's always going to be some negative energy, some negative vibes that are literally directed towards you to make you feel some type of way. So it changes your mood. So you may be in a good mood, you're happy, and then next you hear something, you feel sulky, and you're just like a totally different person. And so you have to be really mindful of what you're viewing, what you're seeing, what you're listening to, who you talk to on a daily basis. And if they're not like literally feeding you, it's like something simple. For those who are or vegans, vegetarians who are maybe in that transition, this is a great example. Like say you eat clean, like say for 2 weeks straight, right? And then you're like, I want to eat some rice, maybe some type of meat, something that's heavy, not as light. How does your body feel? Like, how does your body process that food? You may start to feel a little bit sluggish, not as energetic when you were eating fruits, raw fruits, and you're just drinking, something that's nourishing your body, that's helping, you're giving that internal shower, as they call it. Right? So like, it's like that. It's like going on vacation into a destination where you just don't have to worry about cell phones, laptops. You're not checking, your emails. You're just like totally free. You don't have to worry about anything. And then you get back to work and you're like, oh my God, like I'm dreading, I want to go back. It's the same exact thing. So you want to feed yourself, your soul, your mental, your spiritual, that light, that helps you to stay balanced. And again, not every day you're going to be balanced, but the more you recognize when your body is off balance, you get to clear out those negative energies, and that can be done. There's so many resources on different platforms that, different books, you have audiobooks, you have YouTube, you have TikTok, Instagram, you have other coaches that help with clearing out your chakras. For those who are into that, you have a lot of that information that's available to you to just clear out that negative energy. And this will be done on a daily basis. And I will say that it definitely works. In my personal in my personal opinion. And it's something that you need to do on top of your other exercises for yourself, your other exercises in your personal development. And also remember that in your journey, you cannot compare your journey to someone else's. You may start your journey with someone else, a few weeks or months or whatever it is. Everybody's journey is different. Everyone has to deal with their own shit, their own past shit. Everyone doesn't have the same shit unless they're like twins and they live in identical, environments growing up, all the way from birth, all the way through adulthood. They never separated and they receive the same mental, physical, traumatic experiences. And I'm just saying that, I'm not a scientist, but, I can see possibly that's where they may have the same outcome as far as their cognitive. But everyone has their own journey. So you cannot expect yourself to heal quicker than someone else, right? Some people may have a shorter time frame. Like they may have been self-aware from before, they may have been self-aware from they're in their 20s, their 30s, the 40s. Some people are not even self-aware till the day they die. And they can be much, much older, in their 80s, 90s, 100s, and not self-aware. They're just coasting through life. They have not healed their trauma. You want to make sure that you focus on your progress. It's like you're taking a test in school, which I know many of you watching this took many, many, many tests in grade school, high school, where you're like, oh man, that person's finished. And you're like trying to like answer the questions, there's probably, a good amount of time on the clock, but you're like, how they finish first? That's not fair, So focus on your own test, focus on your own journey. Because if you try to like rush past it and just like, okay, I'm done, guess what happens? There's questions that you knew the answer to, or you did not take enough time to answer, and you got it wrong. And so you got a lower grade than you would have had expected. So just take your time on this journey that you're going on, because there are so many lessons once you go through the healing process. And then once you go through that healing process, you'll recognize those patterns, like what you just healed from, what you just graduated from. You recognize, okay, this happened before, I'm not going to do it again. And so you go on to having a better sense of direction for yourself. You don't fall into those same patterns, to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. So you have a people pleasing problem, right? A pattern of saying yes, 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 yes. And once you do the healing work and you start saying no, or you come back like, you know what? I'll think, yeah, sure, I'll do it. It gives you enough time, because you could always turn that no into a yes, but that yes, it's for you. That's if you want to do it. And from a person who always says yes all the time to a person who just says no and gives out yeses like it's the lottery, because no one wins the lottery, in my opinion. I don't know, but I'm just saying. But it's the same exact thing. Like, you hold it. It's like a bag of gold. I have a bag somewhere. Oh, anyway, it's like a bag of gold. You want to make sure that you protect your treasure, is what I'm trying to say. That's what you are, Bruno Mars. Okay, I had to do it. Love some Bruno. Anyway, so I definitely want to say thank you for listening to this podcast and being a supporter. Please go ahead, like and subscribe to this channel, as there'll be many more. And I do have a giveaway that's going to be coming up very, very shortly. And I do want to make sure that you are have your notifications on to make sure that you get in on it, because if you're not notified, then you just not going to know. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you hit a message in the podcast, you're like, oh my God, you never know. But thank you again, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.